you can jump on and post it on. Oh, thank you. And that too. See, she's my brain. She's the one that keeps me on track. Cool. So if you're on Facebook and you're watching this and you'd like to join us on Zoom, you can. We'll post the Zoom link here. And if you'd also like to ask a question, you can post it on Facebook and Alison will keep an eye on it for me. So welcome everyone. This is episode 2 of Let's Talk Horses, an interactive talkback online podcast with me, Sarah Watts. So thank you for joining me. I'm fresh out of the paddock. So basically last week I looked all nice and dressed up and I had makeup on and stuff. Today I rushed in from riding my horse and jumped on a meeting with Simone and then joined you guys. So welcome everyone and thank you for being here. Does anyone have anything they want to start with this week? Any questions, anything popping up in your world, anything you desire to ask me? Otherwise, and feel free at any time to interrupt me because I will be just blah, 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 as I do when it comes to horses or basically anything. So you can just unmute yourself. You can use the chat in Zoom. And for those of you joining us on Facebook, you can post your questions where you see this video and we'll grab them from there. So we did also send out a question form for people to fill in before the podcast to ask their questions. So I'm going to start with those as well. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but the kookaburras just started going crazy. For anyone not in Australia, and I know those on the Zoom are, but anyone not in Australia, look up what a kookaburra sounds like. It is one of my favorite sounds in the world. So the first question was, what fascinates you about horses and why do you like to be in their presence? So awesome question. And I don't really know, like I don't think there's a particular answer or thing that I could easily put my finger on with that question. I know for sure every time I'm around a horse, I walk away different, and I would like to say better in a way, but not better as in I needed to be better, just better in a way that I find more of myself or something comes up. Like I just went and worked my horse now and I knew straight away it was quite late in the day. He's usually eating his dinner at the time I was asking him to work. And so he was being like very challenging of me. Like he was not like, oh, I'll be very compliant and ask everything you do. He was like tossing his head. He was like thinking about turfing me onto the ground. And it was just this experience that showed me where I need to be in every moment. And I think with horses, the thing that fascinates me the most is you can't really switch off around them unless you desire to get hurt or something to kind of go wrong. You've got to be super duper present. You've got to be in this space, whether you're riding them, whether you're in a field with them, whether you're feeding them or grooming them. You've got to be present in the moment with that animal. And there's a guy I follow online who I just adore. There's a lot of, and that leads into the next question on here as well. There are some phenomenal horse trainers online. And one of them that I follow is a guy called Warwick Schiller, who is an Australian horseman that moved to the United States. And he talks about the principles of training. So he has this, I can't remember how many there are, maybe 5, 6, 7, something like that. And it's not your method of training, but it's the actual fundamental principles of training a horse. So, and one of the things he talks about is don't buy into the story of your horse. Like, oh, my horse responded this way yesterday, so therefore it's going to be the same today. He talks about this principle of training of work with the horse you have in front of you today. And I think that as well has made me so much more present in my day-to-day life, because how often are we around people that we work with, family, loved ones, whatever, and you're basing your interactions with them on how the last interaction was or how the last 5 years of interactions have been. Like, what if we could have this space with people? And I guess this is where I love horses, because I'm like, everything they show me, I can just go boop and put into my everyday life. And I think that's why also the Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider classes are really cool, because it's about horses, but it's about you and it's about creating your life and a different life. So, yeah, he's awesome. Yeah, so I can't really say definitively why I like to be in their presence, except overall it's a demand, really. Like, there's a demand that they make of you that if you're willing to step up to it, step into it, I always walk away better, different, I'm going to say. So the next one was, there are so many different horse trainers online who do amazing work in communication with horses and bringing out their best. What is special about the Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider class? Well, I totally agree. I follow so many horse people and I watch so many horse videos, and every day I feel like I learn more about, or, learn more things to try with my horses, learn different ways that people do things. The thing I love about Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider is there's not a heap. I mean, it's changing a little bit out there now. Well, actually, two things. First of all, there's not so many horse courses that focus on the person. Like, the horse courses mostly that you see, and I mean, Warwickshire is a little bit different. There's a few people out there doing like this, what they would call mindfulness and stuff like that. A few like catchphrases in the horse world that involve you as the person. But I think what's different about Conscious Horse is that it's as much about you as it is about the horses. So I heard, and I've mentioned this so many times, but I'll probably keep mentioning it every time. I heard Gary Douglas once say, and I know an old school horseman said at one time, everything I've learned in life, I've learned from a horse. And even though I've been madly obsessed with horses my whole life, I called bullshit straight away. I was like, no way, there's no possible way that a horse could teach you that much. But when I was willing to actually interact with them from that space, from that point of view, I had to take my hat off to the man literally and thank him, because it's so true. Like, they will literally teach you everything about yourself, how to be a better version of yourself, how to have better interactions and relationships with other people, how to get over controlling things, how to let go of judgment. Like, if you're willing to let them teach you things, they will teach you everything. And I think they're the best facilitators. And I've met some really freaking cool facilitators in my life, and horses are up there with the best of the best, really, when it comes to me having a session with the horse and walking away with more of me, more space, more tools, more access to myself. Yeah, it's very cool in that regard. And then the other part is that Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, and I mean, not to say other modalities or other horse trainers do this, but there's nowhere in Conscious Horse that they say we have the answers. It's like in Access Consciousness, which is the modality, I'll use that word, it's not really a modality, but it's the modality that Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider was born from, like this big exploration of consciousness and having and being more of you and all of that sort of stuff. We, Gary and a few other people, took those tools and created these classes. And the whole principle of Access is it should add to your life. It's never about taking things away. It's never about saying this is the answer to anything. The whole mantra of Access is empowering people to know that they know. And I think Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider classes are very much the exact same flavor as that. They're about you figuring out more of you and allowing horses to facilitate that for you. And I guess the other thing as well is what I love about the fact that I am such a sponge of wanting to know all of this information is that I can take every tool I've learned and apply it. Like I always, I don't know about you guys, but I always struggled to try and stick to something, like to be like, this is how I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it the same way every day. And I'm going to follow this routine to the letter. I mean, if I could manage to do that, it would literally be 3 months, 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months maximum that I could stick to something before I got bored and destroyed it, or before it stopped working, quote unquote, for me. But really, that was just me destroying it. And so the thing I love about Access is it encourages you to take all of everything you've learned. And for me, it allows me to have all of that But the thing that Access is also, and Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider is different with, is you can ask a question in the moment, and then you can dip into that huge tool belt of tools that you've collected along the way and choose what's going to work for the horse that you have in front of you. And, you know, it's the same in real life. It's like, what if every situation that you were in, what if everything that came up, you could just ask a question and have access to a tool, a process, a question, an awareness, something that would assist and facilitate you in having a greater outcome of that, and walking away from it feeling and having more of yourself, rather than walking away like, oh, I got too angry in that situation, or I wish I'd had handled that differently, or I feel like people always walk over me, or I feel like I'm too bossy, or like whatever end of that spectrum you plant yourself. These tools are really about changing that and giving you this moment by moment freedom in life, where you don't have to dwell on things so much anymore, and sit there and pick apart everything you chose and find the places you were right and the places you were wrong. And again, that's what I love about horses. They never do that. They don't sit there and go, oh, I probably shouldn't have bucked my rider off. It's like, hey, in the moment, that was the choice they made. They don't then stand there and like judge themselves or try to figure out exactly what went wrong. They're ready already to move on to the next thing. So, and then the other thing I love about Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider classes as well is we incorporate a lot of Access Consciousness body processes. So these are hands-on energetic body processes. I think the Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider manual, let me just see. Oh, I thought I had mine here. I think the Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider manual has maybe 10 or 12 body processes in it that you can run on horses. So dealing with a whole bunch of different things within their bodies, but it's not, again, there to replace your vet or replace your body worker or replace your chiro or your massage, equine massage therapist. For me, I love them because they tune me into my horse. They like join me into this space with my horse where there's an energy created there that I just think that there's such a huge contribution. So that's the other different thing. We're a little weird is what I want to say. I think the other difference with Conscious Horse is we do some weird stuff, which I think a lot of horse people out there, I mean, Warwick Schiller is awesome because he does talk about energy and he talks about woo-woo and he talks about all of these things where he's, you know, manifested things and all that sort of stuff. And Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, yeah, it's willing to go anywhere and look at anything and not have a point of view about just how deep down the weird rabbit hole we go. So, yeah, I feel like maybe it's something that's the horses have been asking for, if that makes sense. Like it's something where we've gotten them this far with what we know. And, you know, a lot of the tools out there are a rehash of what's been available for a long time, but just delivered in a different way. And I think Conscious Horse has some elements to it that no one's ever explored before. And I think that's also a hugely exciting part. So, Deborah, I know you just had your hand up, but maybe it was accidental. Did you have a question or?
I've got a 20-year-old horse. So we run processes on him. Do you think that will help his feet?
Totally. Yeah.
He has the shittiest front feet. So he has to have shoes on all the time, and I'd like to barefoot him. But because he has such thin walls and thin bottom feet, the vet wanted to put him down, and I said no. So I did a lot of work with him, fed him a lot of Claudio Silva, ran a lot of energy. And he's rideable now. Like he's not lame. There's nothing wrong with him except he has really thin feet. So when we run energy on him through the access, through the Conscious Rider, Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider, that should help him, shouldn't it? Give him
and I'd also be asking him questions like what he knows about his body. Like, hey, do you get that you need to have these shoes on, or is there another possibility? And it's really cool running the processes and asking questions. And because I think when you're running body processes on a horse as well, the thing I mentioned just now and that I love is it creates such a connection with my horse. Like it's almost like there's no separation between my body and their body. Like you really get a sense of every part of their body. I find it a lot easier to tap in on things. I get just these downloads of things. Like my horse went through a few things recently where I was just with him, and I think the hands-on processes give you this level of presence with them. So I'd be running them and at the same time asking him questions like, hey, what does your body actually desire? Do you desire to wear shoes? And
every horse we have, we ask them what their name is. When we get a new horse, we say, what's your name? Because it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the name that he came with.
Yeah,
and
totally.
There's only 2 horses we've ever had where they still have the same name.
Yeah.
So a horse is born, its mother gives it a name, but humans give them a name.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you their name. So
totally.
It's very, very, very cool. And so I have an old mare. She's not as old as Norman, but Misty has a teeth thing going on. So I should just have a chat to her. Vet said it's degenerative, but it's not. It's not catching, but they haven't been able to find out if it's because they found it in America, and they found that it's actually what it does is the teeth go to chalk and then they break away from the gums. So I think we're lucky that she's as good as what she is. So I'm just like, I'm hoping
and tap into her body too and see if it's not something else that's causing it. Like it might be, we tend to go and listen to the research. And I think it's awesome to arm yourself with all of the information out there about horses. Like this is in no way, like I said, to override a vet or anything like that. And it may be that, but it may also be something else. Like ask her body also, what part of your body is this a symptom of? Like, is it a symptom of something else, or is it something else showing up in her mouth that's actually stemming from somewhere else? And even with your boy with his feet as well, like really practice stepping right outside, because I think in all diagnosis, whether it's with people, with animals or whatever, they tend to want to hone right in on something to find the root cause, to get to the bottom of it. But a lot of the time when you start to look at things on a more holistic basis, like you're looking at the whole animal, you're looking at their body and their being and the energetics of them, sometimes these things can show up actually as a result of something that you wouldn't even link it to.
Yeah, well, I've got a young horse. He's only 5 and he's only been off the track 5, nearly 6 months. Angela just started jumping in and his feet are just disgusting. So I haven't talked to him much because he's a bit of he's a hooligan. And so I haven't had time to run and work with him. So what I do with humans, I do with the horses. And this is why I want to do the access, the conscious rider, conscious horse, conscious rider, because together it's going to be phenomenal.
Exactly.
For them,
and even if to begin with you can't touch them. I mean, my boy Ollie, I've had him for 3 years now, and to begin with, he would never accept body work. If you touched him, he thought it meant he had work to do. Like he never was smooched on, he was never loved on. And I mean, I'm such I kiss my horses, I hug their heads, and I'm like all over them. And when I first got him, he did not know how to take me at all. So it's literally, he loves the body processes now. He will stand there most of the time and take them. But to begin with, there's no way I could run MTVSS on him or anything like that. So also though, just know you can kind of also ask some questions without touching them. Like just tap into that awareness that they have, and see if there's some stuff. And also realize as well, horses tend to talk in like pictures, like they'll show you something as like a whole, it's like similar to how they've researched that people with like quite on the spectrum of autism function, where their brain there's no left brain, right brain. It's like this whole brain. And even though horses do have a left brain, right brain function as well, I think overall they tend to like to have the bigger picture on things. So start to ask your horses to send you the pictures of what they're aware of and what they know and what they're trying to tell you as well. Because I definitely get with the guy with his feet, possibly even having some boots on him. Like, you know how you can get like my horses aren't shod. I just have boots for when we're on trail rides, but maybe even to start with that he has the boots on during the day when he's quite active, and then start with just taking the boots off at night and seeing how that goes and seeing if you can.
Yeah.
It's almost like as soon as the shoe's on, the shoe takes over from the hoof's natural function. So as long as he's shod, his foot's not going to get a chance to change, but also going from being shod his whole life to having no shoes on might be way too much. So maybe also something where you can.
It affected him pretty bad.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Ended up with a lot of abscesses just coming straight out because the circulation was blocked off from the shoe. So
really?
What we did, we left him for as long as we possibly could, and we bought some of those boots that look like what do you call it? Uglies. What are they called? They're horse uglies.
I don't know. There's so many brands out there. Yeah.
Anyway, they're a rubber boot.
Yeah.
And put them on him, and he did go well with those in the paddock. But the problem was it was rubbing the back of his foot.
Okay.
So, yeah, but I feel like I've got to do a lot of work with him to get those shoes off him, and I just feel like he's like, whenever he doesn't want to do anything, he just pretends he's sick.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's another cool awareness to have, what horses create in their bodies when they're trying to get something across to you, and maybe that we're not quite hearing what they're trying to say. So
it's like they're lame and they're not lame.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. So the next question on here is, I like this question. What qualities of a person would attract a horse to want to be with them? And I would say to that, horses are like people. I think horses are most attracted to those people that function from a true version of themselves. I think horses are super, super good at seeing through the bullshit. Like if you rock up to a horse and you're like, you have this front on with them, for them it doesn't work, because when they're with each other in the paddock, especially in a herd environment and especially in the wild, which they all come from that. They all come from hundreds of thousands of years of being at the bottom of the pecking order. Everything wants to kill them. So they've come through as an evolved creature that has constantly needed to escape from death. So they're constantly aware of what's going on around them. And that means that they need to be really clear in their communication with each other, because if they bullshit one another, it means someone could die or someone could get hurt and in the end die. So I would say the best quality to have around horses is to lower all of your walls and barriers and be your true self, like showing up as you, which is such another amazing facilitation, because how many people can we be around like that? Like how often is it when you're by yourself, you're out in nature, you like feel like this 100% you, and then even if you're around someone that you love dearly or someone that you're around a lot, something changes in your world where you start to maybe present yourself in a way that person needs to see you or something like that. So horses are also a great way to start practicing that space of like holding your true self and being more of you. And I think horses really desire congruency in everything. So when you're not being you're not congruent to them, and that freaks them out because they're like, I see you, but you're showing me something that doesn't match the energy kind of thing. And it's like when you're training horses, when you're asking them to do anything, you've got to be really congruent in what you're asking them. So what sort of people do horses love to have around? They love to have people around that are congruent with themselves and congruent with their own energy. Like if you want a horse to do something, you need to ask it to do it and follow through with that. Not like, oh, maybe you should do it, because the moment you do that, they're like, I can't trust you. You could get me killed quite easily here. So yeah. And I would say practice being around them and just sitting with them and lowering your walls and barriers and asking what it looks like to be your authentic self, like your true self with horses, and see what shows up. Yeah. And then the last question is, I heard you say that in a conscious horse, conscious rider class, you get facilitated by horses. What do you mean when you say that? Well, I think I touched on that quite a bit throughout this podcast. just in as much as like all of that we've talked about, you really can't hide anything from them. Like I've heard people say they're a mirror, but I don't think it's so much that they're a mirror. I think that they're more just, they will cut directly to the core of you and there's not really much you can hide from them. And a lot of the time people think the horse is playing up because I'm a bad rider or because the horse is bad or because blah, 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 blah. But honestly, in that moment, if you ask a question like, where am I at right now? What's my space? What have I got going on up here? And because all of that is going to be contributing to what you present to the horse, and a horse will never just believe you. They're always going to be looking for what's truly, truly going on. And if you watch horses in a field, like my two, I've got a mare and a gelding, and my gelding is what you would think is the leader because he bosses the mare around. And we can look at that in another session because there's so much more to it. But you also watch, if he approaches her with a certain energy from 5 meters away, she will run, she'll move her body out of the way. But you can also watch him walk up to her and graze at her feet and she won't move away. And that's because he is completely congruent in that moment of what he expects from the situation, what he's asking of her, and what his energy is telling her. So sometimes he's like, hey, get out of my way, or whatever that is that's going on for him. And sometimes it's like, hey, I'm just going to approach you and graze nearby. And she knows that without even lifting her head off the ground. She is grazing down, he approaches and she doesn't move away. So I guess the thing that they will always facilitate you on is your bullshit. To put it like very, very straightforward. So I would just say, if there's anywhere in your life where there's stuff that you would like to change, maybe come to a conscious horse, conscious rider class. I would say get around horses, but sometimes if you don't know sort of how to like facilitate the facilitation, how to make it come up, these classes are really cool because the facilitators are actually access consciousness facilitators. So they've done a lot of this work around energy, around consciousness, around not going to conclusion, not judging, about asking questions. And my, interesting point of view is that combined with horses is like the ultimate version of facilitation. So, yay. Cool. Well, we're done. Half an hour. So see, I'm always like, what am I going to talk about? And then I'm like, holy shit, the half an hour's gone. Go.
there was one question in Facebook. Can you talk about awareness zone of horses and what to ask to have the same capacity?
Yeah, well, I would play with it really. Like if you can get around some horses and tap into what level of awareness they have. And I mean, horses in captivity, domesticated horses, their immediate level of awareness, like what we call in conscious horse, conscious rider, their zone. And we do look at the zone in these classes and how the zone functions and how you can actually expand their zone and work. But we function very much the same as them. We also have a zone of awareness. Horses will have a collapse zone. So if they've had some trauma in their life or something that's created them to shut down, you will find a lot of horses, never a horse in the wild because they would not survive. A horse in the wild zone of awareness is huge. But if you have horses domesticated, a lot of the time their zones may have shrunk right down because either they've had trauma or they've just not had to have that level of awareness. But having said that, I believe, like my point of view is all horses are connected in a way. There's an energetic connection that runs through what I call like the global herd of horses, or every horse that lives on this planet in one way or another is connected with each other. And I guess it's the same for all of us. And it really comes from what consciousness is. Like it's this thing where absolutely everything is included in everything. So even if you're around horses with maybe zones that are a little collapsed, or maybe your zone is a little collapsed, what if you were willing to sit there and actually tap into the global herd of horses, like tap into this horse's world and then find where energetically they're connected to all of the other horses in the world. And trees do this, nature does this, and even science has proved like the way that things are connected on this planet. So yeah, I would say play with it. And all of this really comes through practice. It's like anything. If you're willing to work the muscle of being more conscious, being in less judgment, being a better horse person. It just takes you showing up and doing it, really. So yay. Any other questions, Alison? Anything else on FB land?
Not on Facebook, but Uda had a question in the chat. Do you have examples in which areas you could apply what you learned in Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider in a business kind of way?
Yeah, cool. So can you put that on the doc and we'll do that at the next episode? Because that's an awesome question. And I'll probably sit here for another 15 minutes and talk about it. So I'll schedule another episode either towards the end of this week or early next week. And we'll put that on the doc, Uta. So I'll answer that one right away. And then put Brigitte's question in there as well about leadership. Yeah, that's a great question too. Yeah, I wish I could answer them now, but I want to have these as 30 minutes so that they're in bite-sized chunks for people to go back and hear. So let's have those two questions on the next episode. And I might even see if I can squeeze one in at the end of this week or over the weekend. And then otherwise, guys, if you can't make any of the Zooms live, just submit your questions on the form that comes out in the email, and then you'll obviously get the replay as well. So thank you for joining me. I'm so excited that I've chosen this and that you guys are asking me amazing, amazing questions. And I want to also acknowledge all of the horses in the world, because every time I'm around a horse, everything gets better different. That's my new catchphrase, better different. So thanks, everyone. See you on the next episode. Bye.